Today, I want to talk about something that almost everybody needs to hear. You are not David Goggins. Doing hard stuff will never be easy. I'm not David Goggins, and I'm not that guy who trained like him for 100 days. We are not David Goggins, but we can do really hard things. And there's a very simple way to do harder things, and that is make the easy stuff hard and make the hard stuff easier. So while we're doing that, let's talk about what this even means. How do we even make sense of something like this? So when I say make the easy stuff hard and make the hard stuff easier, let's break this down into two parts. Make the easy stuff hard. What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of easy, quick dopamine hits that we can get throughout the day. I really don't like using that term like I'm some sort of chemist or some sort of scientist who understands hormones, but dopamine is a very easily attainable type of hormone in your body. We can get that from scrolling on Instagram. We can get that from, playing video games. We can get that from eating sweet food. We can get that from eating in general. And we can get really easy dopamine hits, which our bodies have evolved to chase these dopamine hits. But let's make that hard, because we want dopamine hits that come from finishing a project, finishing a chapter in a book, maybe taking a shower, and then maybe the dopamine you feel after coming home from the gym. We want that dopamine. But if we're getting that feeling all the time from just getting on our phone, we're not really going to be able to cherish that dopamine we get from completing hard and difficult tasks. So let's make the easy stuff hard. The way I've been able to do that in certain situations we'll go over a little bit later. But making the hard stuff easier, let's try to make it super easy throughout your day to build momentum as quick as possible. The quicker you can build momentum, usually the easier it is to do hard stuff, because then you're not really thinking about it. You're just doing what you're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis. The hard thing that you were dreading isn't really going to be an issue for you anymore. It's really just going to be something that you're already doing without any thought. And sometimes it's because you have nothing else better to do. Honestly, that's a pretty good way to get through your day, when you have absolutely nothing else better to do. So now let's start talking about examples from my real life and how I've been able to implement this. So, my morning routine. I am notoriously bad at waking up early. I am extremely awful. I'm not a morning person. I'm irritable. And, I was just not pleasant to be around. So how do I get around this? Well, the preparation doesn't start when you make the decision. That's usually the fault that people come to, where they're like, I'm going to wake up early and that's it. And then they just decide, all right, it's time to get up early with no other significant thought. But the way you do this is you actually have to prepare the night before. Preparing the night before is really what's going to be able to get you up early. Because if you go to sleep at 2 in the morning and your alarm's set for 6, you're hitting snooze 9 out of 9 times every single day. We don't want to hit snooze. We want to get up. We want to get our day started early. So the things that I was able to do was I had to go through a lot of trial and error to build out some system. And I know it sounds so ridiculous to have a system in the morning, but I was very adverse to a routine in my younger years, because when you hear the word routine and you're young, you're like, oh, how boring, how monotonous. But as you get older, you really start to cherish and value these things, So the way I was able to build it was I would have to put my phone in the bathroom, which is adjacent to the bed, in a whole nother room to me. And then I would need to prepare my clothes in advance the night before to be able to get dressed right away so I'm not cold and I'm not tempted to go right back to bed. Because that's always a problem. You cannot just hit snooze and go right back to bed. You need to get your clothes. So it was really easy for me to continue that system of just putting on my clothes and getting ready for the day ASAP. And then that helped me roll in to the new thing, which was going to the gym every single morning at about 6:30. So everyone wants to go to the gym, and the earlier the better usually. You have more motivation, and you really want to work on yourself early before you feel weak, before you feel battered and tired throughout the day. So We're going to skip straight to that one, working out. Working out is not fun. I was a basketball player when I was younger, so weightlifting was probably the worst thing you could ever ask me to do during training camp or during any kind of physical activity. I don't want to lift weights. I'm a basketball player. I don't even see the value in that in my younger years and at that time. So how do I do it now? Well, again, I just make it really easy for me to be able to work out. So I have my clothes prepped usually the morning of, and then I'll have an energy drink or something that I have. I know having an energy drink at 6 in the morning is not optimal, but I do not care. I would rather feel good while doing something strenuous that I don't necessarily like doing than just being able to tolerate, you know, my life. Like, I want to be able to feel good, and if that's a vice I have, it is what it is. So I wake up early, I have everything prepped beforehand, and I have a gym in the building I live in, which is a huge bonus. And that was something I really wanted when I decided to move somewhere. That was something I absolutely required because I do not like driving to a gym. It sucks. But if you do drive to a gym, which I have done for years and years and years, there's nothing wrong with that. There's other ways to get around that too. If you want to drive to a gym, then do that. But also, you should prep your things beforehand and then make plans with someone. Make plans to be there and meet somebody at a certain time. And if you're an honorable person, you're really likely not going to flake on them every single time. If you do, they'll stop inviting you, and that feels worse overall. So if you cherish a friendship and you really are serious about going to the gym, put your resolve to the test by promising, yes, I'll be there at so-and-so time. And that's also another thing. You can decide on a time and set an alarm. I go to the gym twice a day, so I have an alarm. Obviously, right when I wake up, I go to the gym. And then after, at about 6 p.m. to go do cardio. I need that alarm to be able to remind me so I don't have to think throughout the day about what I'm doing. The more you have to think about what you're doing when you're doing something difficult, the more likely you're going to procrastinate on the task because it is so mentally painful that you don't want to think about doing something like that. We're all human. As much as I love watching David Goggins, I'm not going to go to the closet and clean it out every single morning in my head. I'm not doing that, dude. I have other things. I can't run ultra marathons. I have businesses to attend to, and I have, people and things in my life that I also need to be aware of. So that brings me to the next point. Business. Every time I've started a business, there's always exciting parts and upsetting parts about starting a business. The exciting part is usually thinking of the idea. That's about as exciting business gets. I don't think you can get much more excitement than that, usually. Exciting things in business happen usually right at the beginning and then when you start winning. But most of business is insufferable, painful, and honestly upsetting and frustrating at almost every turn. So how do you decide to do something like that and try to make it easy? Well, keyword, when I said make the easy stuff hard and the hard stuff easy, I didn't say easy, I said easier. It's not going to be easy. Business is not going to be fun. Business is never going to be easy. And you're going to go through a lot of growing pains. But the best way you can do this is make the rest of your life so insufferably boring that you have absolutely no choice but to work on a secondary income. For example, if you come home every day after work and you shower, you go to the gym, and then you get home, then what do? This is the part where you need to either make a decision or you automatically do something. If your routine after getting home from work is just to go to the gym, or if you go to the gym before work and get home, and then you just shower, go straight to the TV, or go play video games, or scroll on your phone for a few hours, cook some dinner while scrolling TikTok, then of course you're not going to have the motivation or time to start a business or make a supplementary income. It's just not going to happen. So what do you do instead? Firstly, move all those social media applications, if that's not your job already, move them to another older phone. That's what I do. You don't need to buy a really, really nice phone from Amazon. You can get a refurbished one that works just fine. Get an old one, put all those apps on there, and don't use it. Just don't use it. these apps don't really help. Even YouTube's a huge distraction for me. So I really try to limit the usage of it in my day-to-day life. Also video games. Keep it contained to a certain place. Ideally, not your bedroom. You don't want to be at night playing video games and laying down with this giant blue light in your face, keeping you up longer and taking away your natural, how do you say, circadian rhythm? Yeah, circadian rhythm. You don't want that taking away your circadian rhythm to be able to sleep comfortably and easily and wake up with more energy. So now that you have no social media and video games in one location, and you're not going to be watching Netflix all the time, just move it to the same place where you have your video games, and then just avoid that place. Like for the bedroom, use it to sleep. For the living room, use it to live, you know? Keep those certain rooms designated for certain times in certain areas. If you're able to do that and separate your life into these little portions, then when you're in your living room, you're going to be so incredibly bored that you're going to start to, if you want to do something, that's going to be about the time that you start deciding on what you're going to do. And so the way I can start deciding is I always keep a notebook handy. I prefer physical notebooks over my notes in my phone. I lose the notes in my phone, and I just generally don't value them as much. So I always write things down. You should write down every garbage business idea you have, but not just the idea. Write down the vision and the plan you have for it, even if you're a novice. The plan doesn't have to be that detailed, just kind of a certain guide, you know, and then a timeline, when you want to achieve these things. Whether you act on it that day or that night or not, doesn't matter. But once you start to do those things and start getting into that habit, you'll be able to start doing these challenging things with a lot more ease than you normally would have. Because now your life is so insufferably boring, this is the only other option you have to get any kind of stimulation. It sounds kind of dreadful and horrible, but for real, you get used to it. Even if you're not going to start a business, you'll start reading books. I have a whole bunch of books. You'll start to learn things. You'll start to do things that you've been passionate about that you've always been pushing off. You know, like there's a lot of things that you get when you're not letting them commoditize your time anymore. All these apps and social media platforms, all they're doing is using you as a commodity to sell to advertisers. That's all they're doing. They're not necessarily helping you. If watching YouTube made you a millionaire, you would have been a millionaire 10 years ago. That's not how it works. Millionaires typically aren't, you know, on social media as much unless that is their job. And even then, most of the millionaires I have been around who do have social media based jobs, they don't really use social media ironically. Like they really don't use it. They see kind of no value in it. Or if they do see value in it, they're not really fans of too many people. They just don't have time because they're usually busier doing things that matter because they've become so bored in their life, or they just choose not to do that because they don't see the value in it, that they're doing things that they do see value in. And that's the point. You shouldn't be trying to distract yourself every day from having some sort of existential crisis. Have that existential crisis. It's absolutely necessary half the time to be able to progress, to have that angst, to have that, you know, those latent issues, that insecurity, that dreadful feeling. Feel those things. Feel them. Don't avoid them. They're normal. They're natural. You need to understand these feelings, and then the best way to act on them is to make it really hard to act on anything else but that. That's the best way to act on those feelings. You don't necessarily need to be David Goggins. You don't need to be, you know, an ultra marathon runner. You don't need to be a book writer, a multimillionaire. You don't need to have rich parents. You don't need to have much, just kind of some motivation and free time. And if you're watching this video, chances are you have free time, way more free time than you think. You can do a few things at a time. Obviously, it's better to focus just on one, especially if you have another like job and you're trying to build a supplemental income stream. It's going to be really important for you to use every second you get wisely. Now, that doesn't mean neglect your family, neglect your friends, you know, run away, isolate yourself for 6 months. You don't have to do that. I think that's kind of a repulsive idea anyway, to just isolate yourself from your support system, friends, and family. That's just not a good idea. Fundamentally, you don't really want to just run away from everyone else so you can lock in. That's very antisocial behavior. You need People are social creatures. If you spent a lot of time alone, you kind of know how sad and depressing it is. Don't glorify that. The time's going to be hard enough. Why not enjoy it with your family? Why not still go to events? Why not do these things? But when you get home from work or get home from school or, get home from the unemployment center, use that time to be able to not just do nothing on your phone. Just make it really hard to be on your phone. Make it hard to eat bad food. Don't have bad food. Don't have alcohol in the house. Don't have things that are just going to bring detriment to your life and your being in your presence, in your house. If you're actually serious about progress, make not making progress very hard. Or there's things like my morning routine. Like I said, I don't like waking up early. How did I get around that? All you do is just make it really hard to go back to bed. That's all I did. I didn't become magically better. Just go try to sleep earlier. Sometimes, you still get that anxiousness, you still get those deep thoughts, and you can't sleep, but just make it really hard to go back to bed. Like, I don't have an excuse when I'm standing there in front of the mirror, looking at myself with that tired face and no motivation to stay up, but my clothes are right next to me. Like, I'm looking at myself in the mirror. Am I really going to turn off this light, turn off my alarm, go back to bed? I'm not doing that. I'm right here. I'm already here. I showed up. It's not my best performance, but it's something. I made it really hard to get back to bed, to do the easy thing, to hit the snooze button. I don't have that ability. So it's a much easier choice for me to make in the morning. That's just how you need to start structuring things. And it doesn't happen right away. It takes a lot of time to decide how to do these things and how to know what to really pursue. Like, what should you really focus on if you're trying to get better? And that's just to make it really hard to do things that are really easy. And at first, it's kind of an adjustment and it feels uncomfortable, but eventually you get used to it. You get used to just not scrolling, doing actual hard work feels better. Maybe even being at your job probably feels better. I mean, your job can be as monotonous and boring as possible, but if you have something to distract you that you feel is influential, not just scroll on TikTok when you go to the bathroom or something, then, you'll have more purpose. You'll just feel better. Even if it doesn't really lead to anything, you'll feel better throughout your life. There's a very common trope in our life, especially in our generation, the younger one, that, phone addiction is a genuinely serious problem and a serious plague. You see that? That was my cardio alarm. Now, as soon as I'm done with this video, that's exactly what I'm going to do. That's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go straight to the gym and do cardio. I made it really hard for myself to forget and really easy for myself to just stay on track and do the bare minimum. You don't need to exert yourself to 100,000 every day like David Goggins would. All you need to do is put in the bare minimum, as long as the bare minimum is just what you're supposed to do. Sometimes you can push harder some days, but then other days, most days, you're not going to want to push that hard. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't need to push to 110% every day. But if you can give yourself at least 50% for 2 weeks and then do 120% for 5 more days, that's better than giving 1,000% for 2 days and then not doing anything else about it and not changing your life at all. So make the small changes now, make the small sacrifices earlier, and you should be able to benefit from that. But, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to yap about today. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe. See ya.